Keir Starmer's leadership is careening from one crisis to another as his government faces a storm of scandals that could define his premiership. The WASPI women, a generation of 1950s-born pensioners, have been left devastated by government incompetence, with many dying before they could see justice. Meanwhile, the migrant crisis continues to spiral out of control as Starmer's proposed solutions are slammed as ineffective and expensive. And now, rural Britain is up in arms as farmers revolt against Labour's controversial inheritance tax changes, which they claim will destroy family farms and threaten Britain's food security. This isn't just a bad week for the Prime Minister, it's a crisis of trust that threatens to unravel the very fabric of his government. Let's delve into these three interconnected disasters, their devastating consequences, and the growing public anger directed at Starmer and his team. The WASPI women's story is one of betrayal, financial devastation, and years of being ignored. These women, born in the 1950s, were blindsided by changes to the state pension age, which rose from 60 to 65 as part of the government's efforts to equalise retirement ages for men and women. The issue wasn't the change itself, it was the complete lack of notice. Many women learned far too late that their retirement plans were in shambles. They'd budgeted and saved, believing they could stop working at 60, only to find out months before retirement that they'd have to wait years longer. The financial consequences were catastrophic. Some women were forced to sell their homes, drain their life savings, or take on part-time work well into their 60s. Others fell into poverty, unable to afford basic necessities like heating or food. In 2022, the Parliament and Health Service Ombudsman, PHSO, issued a damning report, finding the government guilty of maladministration. The Ombudsman determined that the affected women should have received at least 28 months more notice, which would have allowed them to plan for the changes. The PHSO recommended compensation of £1,250 to £2,950 per claimant, but for many campaigners, this amount barely scratches the surface of the financial losses they've endured. Angela Madden, chair of the WASPI campaign, has been vocal about the human cost of the government's failure to act. It is both distressing and tragic that after 9 long years of campaigning, 300,000 WASPI women have died without seeing the justice they are due. These numbers are staggering. One WASPI woman dies every 13 minutes, leaving many campaigners wondering if they will live to see a resolution. Keir Starmer recently addressed the issue during the G20 summit in Rio, hinting that the Department for Work and Pensions, DWP, is working on a statement. Obviously, it's a very serious report, and the response will be set out by the DWP secretary in the not-too-distant future. But this vague reassurance comes after 8 months of silence from his government since the Ombudsman's recommendations were made public. To add insult to injury, Chancellor Rachel Reeves's autumn budget completely ignored the issue. Despite announcing funding for other scandals, such as the Post Office Horizon disaster, Reeves offered no clarity for the WASPI women. Pensions Minister Emma Reynolds has been equally evasive, saying only, "We hope to be able to update the House in the coming weeks." For the WASPI women, this tepid response feels like a betrayal. After nearly a decade of campaigning, they expected more from Labour. While Starmer fumbles with the WASPI crisis, his government is also under fire for its handling of the migrant crisis. Over 33,000 people have crossed the Channel in small boats this year, making 2024 the second highest total on record. Worse, 68 migrants have died attempting the dangerous journey, making this the deadliest year yet. In an attempt to address the crisis, Labour has announced plans for Italian-style migration deals with countries like Turkey, Kurdistan and Vietnam. These agreements would see the UK providing financial aid to help these nations bolster their border security. Labour hopes to replicate Italy's success, which saw a 62% reduction in Mediterranean crossings after striking similar deals with Tunisia and Libya. But critics have slammed these plans as hollow, expensive and lacking in real solutions. Former Border Force Director Tony Smith has been one of the most vocal opponents, warning that these deals will fail without proper mechanisms for returning failed asylum seekers to their countries of origin. The only effective deterrent is returns. If migrants know they'll be sent back, they won't risk their lives crossing the Channel or paying smugglers. Smith praised the Albania deal, which significantly reduced crossings from that region, but pointed out that Labour's new agreements lack similar return policies. He also questioned the transparency around these deals and raised concerns about their financial cost. "We're doing deals here, there, and everywhere, but what's it all costing? Without a deterrent, we can't stop the boats." Meanwhile, the public is growing increasingly frustrated with Labour's inability to tackle the root causes of illegal migration. With taxpayer money pouring into foreign governments and no significant reduction in crossings, the migrant crisis is quickly becoming another major scandal for Starmer's government. If the WASPI and migrant crises weren't enough, Starmer is now facing a rural revolt as thousands of farmers descend on London to protest Labour's inheritance tax changes. The new policy limits 100% tax relief on farms to just £1 million, with Labour insisting the £3 million threshold is enough to protect most family farms. Farmers, however, see the policy as a direct threat to their livelihoods. Many fear they'll be forced to sell off land, livestock or equipment to pay inheritance tax bills, potentially dismantling farms that have been passed down for generations. Labour peer Baroness Malalieu criticised her own party, accusing it of being out of touch with rural Britain. Starmer attempted to defend the policy, citing his own upbringing. "My first job was on a farm. My entire family lives in the countryside. I do get it." But these reassurances fell flat with the farming community. National Farmers Union, NFU, President Tom Bradshaw delivered an emotional speech in Westminster, choking back tears as he described the human cost of the policy. "The human impact of this policy is simply not acceptable. It's wrong. We know the horrendous pressure it's putting on the older generation of farmers who have given everything to providing food for this country." Farmers are also warning about the broader consequences of the policy, particularly its impact on Britain's food security. If farms are forced to sell off land to pay taxes, domestic food production could decline, leaving the UK increasingly reliant on imports. With tensions rising, some farmers are even threatening to strike, a move that could have far-reaching consequences for the UK's economy. Keir Starmer's government is at a breaking point. The WASPI women's fight for justice is a ticking time bomb, with campaigners dying every day. The migrant crisis continues to spiral out of control, with Labour's solutions criticised as costly and ineffective. And rural Britain is in open rebellion over inheritance tax changes that could devastate family farms. These scandals reveal more than policy failures. They expose a deeper problem with Starmer's leadership. His inability to offer clear, decisive solutions is eroding public trust and fueling frustration across the country. Will Starmer rise to the occasion and address these crises head-on? Or will his government crumble under the weight of scandal and betrayal? One thing is clear: Britain's patience is running out, and Starmer is running out of time.